Everybody, thank you for joining the webinar today to look at how agents can deliver the same amount of collections performance as 30 agents on a dialer, purely with 2 agents. This is a real example of what we've seen from deployments of SMS conversations within the collections environment. Really, the purpose today is to give you a good feel for how we go about that, how the technology works, and some of the learnings that we've found in the last few months of deploying this technology in some fairly major collections organizations. So again, thank you for joining. I anticipate taking no more than 15, maybe 20 minutes at a push of your time. Really appreciate you spending time with us today and coming to hear what we've got to say. Just before I start, a little bit of housekeeping. If anybody has any questions, there should be a chat window available to you. If you'd like to ask any questions in there as the session progresses, I will try and address those at the end. But do come back to me if you've got any particular questions. I thought before I started, I'd just give you a flavor of the types of businesses that VoiceSage works with today. We've got quite a broad cross-section of organizations across a number of different vertical sectors, many household names that I'm sure people on the call and webinar today will be familiar with. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can see the logos there. Many of them are major organizations, and we are providing a broad range of capability to these businesses. Collections being a fundamental part of our offer. I would say today, of a customer base of circa 80 customers, probably 40 to 45 of those organizations are using us for collections within their business. So we've built up an incredibly strong understanding of the collections journey, how to influence the collections journey, and I think the metrics that show that is, as we extend the slide through really, we're on target to deliver 300 messages in the next 300 million messages, I should say, in the next 12 months. So we're communicating with a huge array of organizations and individuals. 67% of the UK numbers have been contacted by VoiceSage in the past 24 months. So that is an incredibly broad cross-section of the UK demographic. It means that we've reached out and communicated with, a huge proportion of the population. And that's valuable because it gives us learnings, and they are learnings that we can apply to communications as we move forward. And I'll talk about some of that as we go through. And so we say we're serving businesses today that are serving 75% of the UK population. And last year itself, we achieved over £150 million of client savings. So VoiceSage has very much become a fundamental component of these organizations' technology offer. We're fairly fundamental in their communication strategy, and those communications grow as we develop as a business and as we bring new capability to bear, which SMS Conversations is very much an innovative example of that. So let's talk about what the communication landscape looks like today for a typical organization like the people that we have on the webinar today. There's a cross-section of different mediums that organizations are using to reach out to their customers. Dialers and agents, of course, are the classic way in a communications environment, certainly within a collections business. I would imagine that most of the people on the session today will be using a combination of those two aspects. Voice messaging has become a component that businesses are offering, and of course is a core component of what VoiceSage does. SMS, I think most of the companies that we engage with have some form of SMS capability. I think it's fair to say that it tends to be fairly simplistic in the way that it works. We've got a much stronger offer, a much broader capability, which we're going to focus on today. And we're all about engaging customers in conversations and guiding them along the collections journey to create successful outcomes for you, to collect more cash, to get more promises to pay, to basically improve the way the operation works. Emails and letters, of course, are mechanisms that are used today. And all of the people that are on the webinar will probably use a combination, if not all of those aspects within their business today. But one of the challenges that provides is that most of those strategies and channels tend to sit within silos. So you'll have pieces of technology that are addressing certain aspects of these. And often we see that businesses never join those components together. So trying to obtain that sort of holistic view of your customer conversations is very, very difficult. It's a very strong play for VoiceSage. It's what we're about. We're fairly agnostic to the type of channel that you choose to use and communicate. The important aspect from our side is that we give you the flexibility and capability to manage all of those channels from within a single application, a single solution. So we give you that visibility of those engagements across multiple channels, moving away from that siloed approach to give you much more powerful understanding of the communications. So we bring that together we join at those aspects. We're multimodal in terms of the way that we communicate with customers. So we can engage a customer in initially perhaps a voice message that may lead to an SMS. It may lead to automation into a payment gateway. It may lead to a conversation with an advisor in a contact center. It may lead to some email off the back of that, or driving some white mail out through the back door. But the important aspect is that we can join all of those communications together, so we can give you that single point of engagement across all of those channels. We join the components together in simplistic terms. I alluded today that many customers and many organizations that we work with have SMS capability, and it's not untypical for us to engage with a business that says, yeah, we do SMS today. And I think probably most businesses' definition of SMS is they fire a blast of SMSs on a daily, a weekly, an hourly basis. That varies, depends on the business, depends on the nature of service they're providing. But what we do see is a lot of those organizations tend to approach it from a fire and forget perspective. So they'll buy a bulk selection of SMS messages. They'll issue these messages out to their customers. They may get some feedback in terms of which of those messages were delivered, but they tend to go no further than that. And what we found that means is that you lose visibility of that engagement. You can't really get a grasp of what the value of that communication was, whether the customer's read it, understood it, is actioning it, or is working off the back of it. You lose that visibility. And VoiceSage has always approached communications as a two-way engagement. We're trying to stimulate a business outcome, and to do that, we're trying to stimulate customers to engage in a conversation with us via those various channels. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that we do that as we go into the SMS conversations. But we have a much stronger play than the classic fire and forget approach, and we'll talk about that as we move through. So the purpose of today was to look at SMS conversations. SMS conversations is a new capability that we've brought to bear in the last few months. We've always had the facility to communicate via SMS and to engage a customer, as I've already alluded to, in two-way conversation. So I can SMS a customer, the customer can respond, I can then drive a business activity off the back of that. So logically, extending that out to give a real-time capability where I can engage a customer with a live agent within my business has some significant benefits to organizations. And that's something that we've absolutely seen in the last few months in the deployments that we've done most recently. So SMS conversations is about empowering you to have live conversations with multiple customers through a single agent within a contact center to drive successful business outcomes. And in collections, that has a particularly compelling play, which we'll come on to talk about. So let's give you a summary of how that works today. Most of our customers work on the basis of integrating with a back office of some form, and typically we do that in one of two ways. Most of our customers provide us with bulk data, communication data on an hourly, daily basis, where we bring that into our world from their back office systems, and that contains information about who we're reaching out to, ID and V security confirmation data, demographic data. All of those things go together to form the type of message we're sending out and the MI that we need off the back of that. So we can create a campaign of SMS communications. We can launch that campaign automatically, and we will, of course, spread that across your resourcing levels, and we'll make sure that we're not overloading people with huge communication loads coming into the enterprise and the organization. That's all controlled within the VoiceSage cloud. But it allows you to bulk issue a vast array of SMS conversations, but then bring the responsive SMSs into the contact center environment, into a live agent. And what we've seen typically is we think it's sensible for one agent to be communicating with up to 30 customers at any one time. So the ability to communicate across a broad cross-section of individual customers with a single agent is huge. Obviously, if you're using dialer technology, and even to a certain extent if you're using outbound voice technology, you have one-to-one conversations. With SMS, it means that you can have multiple conversations going on at any one time, in real time, with a customer that is interacting with a live agent at your end, and you're driving that customer towards a commitment to pay, a promise to pay, and of course to collect some cash from them. And I'll talk about that in some more detail. So the mechanism is very, very simple. We take data from your world, we use it in our world, we determine who we're sending the messages to, we fire them out to your customers, we stimulate the customer to converse with a live agent, and we engage them in a conversation. So we talked about historical mechanisms, we talked about how Organizations today use dialer technology. Innovative technology businesses are starting to look at automating that with IDM and outbound messaging, which is a big play for us as well. And typically what we see is across communications, the workload that's needed to manage these are, if you look at a dialer that's perhaps making 10,000 SMS communications or 10,000 dial-out communications, I should say, typically we need about 30 agents. With 30 agents, this is a real example, we're getting somewhere in the region of 200 promises to pay, and that's at a 64% kept rate. Now, if we move to automated voice messaging, looking at the same sort of volumes, the huge advantage of voice messaging, of course, is that you don't need anywhere near as many agents within the environment to actually communicate with the customers. Because we're going through a process of bringing in customers that are in a position to make that payment, we can have a significant impact on the headcount. So typically, with the same volume of transactions, we need 10 agents within that environment to get a very similar level of promises to pay. And what we've historically seen in the data that we've analyzed across our customers is we get a slightly smaller level of promises to pay within a couple of percent, but we do see a higher kept rate. So as a play across a broad cross-section of different organizations, that is very much a familiar story where we can do very much the same as a dialer with significantly less headcount. Where it becomes incredibly compelling, though, is when I bring the SMS conversations into play. And these are based on real findings that we've seen across 2 or 3 different organizations. And I think before you join the session today, you will have an invite, and I think that invite contained a video for one of our customers, Vanquis Bank. You will see some conversation and talk in there about their experiences with SMS conversations. They are seeing incredibly similar rates of communication, but they're using an app with just purely 2 agents. So to get the same level of promises to pay, even with an improved kept rate, they need 2 agents as opposed to 10 with a voice messaging system and 30 with a dialer. So we think there's a number of different reasons for that. The anonymous nature of SMS means that you can engage people in positions and conversations that you may not typically be able to do them as a voice call. People that are perhaps at work, sitting in a meeting, having a conversation, wherever they may be. It's less of an oppressive communication. It's easier for them to communicate in that manner, and we've absolutely seen that is the case. So we expect to have a significant impact on any collections organization in terms of the ability to collect more cash quicker with significantly less people, and that's very much the key play for SMS conversations, we believe. And typically we're seeing a typical collections communication takes about six messages. So we've got, the ability to handle a very large collections file with very, very few people there in a real-time environment. So let's take an example of how that might look. So you can see here how the communication works, as you would expect with any SMS. As far as the customer is concerned, they're having an SMS conversation as they would with a friend or a colleague. They're communicating with a live person within your organization, and the person from your side is interacting with them through the portal. So how might that work? Let's look at an agent view. So this is an example. This is real language that is used today in a collections environment. This is a real example. We, of course, John Smith is used extensively. He, of course, isn't a real customer, but you get a feel. We've hidden the names here, but it shows you how an agent may interact from their perspective with a customer. As you can see, we've got the right party identification, confirmation, and verification piece up front. This can be constructed around your operation and your organization. So whatever is appropriate for your business, whichever is the most appropriate form of ID&V, we can build that into this mechanism very, very easily for you. But the important aspect here is you have complete traceability and visibility of this. There is an audit trail of every single one of these conversations. There's an extensive MI and reporting suite that sits behind all of this. So you've got the ability to control from a compliance perspective, control from a security perspective, maintain the standards that you as an organization see as important. We can give you those level of controls. So some examples of the types of things here, we get typical views of what we may see, agent contact requests, agent payment settlement offers. The language we can build, we can define this, we can create templates, we can make the process as simple as possible and as controlled as possible for your business. But we are seeing, as I've said already, significant traction here. More traction than if we planned it, probably more than we expected. Particularly within the collections play, we have seen a real acceptance by our customers' customers to engaging with them through this medium. And we think it's really going to be very, very compelling as we roll it out across more and more businesses. I mentioned Vanquis Bank. I put a URL on there to the video. I believe you may have already seen that. I understood it came out as part of the invite. I'd urge you to go to our website because there are some other videos on there that we built recently that certainly are worth watching. We've got an interesting animation around how this technology works. So if you have other people within your business you want to present this to internally, there's an opportunity to do that. A very brief summary of us, really. I just wanted to cover off some points that I think are salient for this webinar. Technology-wise, we are a cloud-based vendor, so all of our technology resides in the cloud. It makes it very easy to us to deploy this capability across any enterprise, really. Our touch points, we sit on the edge of your network. We are fully DSS PCI compliant, PCI level 1 compliant, I should say, which is a very protracted process to go through, but I know is important to our customers and will be important to the people that are on the phone today. We have a full MI capability within there, so all of the reporting, all of the understanding of how you're communicating with customers, how your customers are interacting with you are all in there. As a business, I've already said, we've got an extensive experience of working within the collections environment. We've got circa 80 live customers today, 40 to 45 of those are doing collections journey with us. But as a business, we very much focus on moving metrics. So we are a technology purveyor. We built some incredibly clever technology, which we're rightly proud of. But as a deployment, we very much focus on moving metrics within your business, whether they be doing more with less, whether they be collecting cash through more efficient mechanisms. That is what we build our propositions around. And we take time to understand, being a cloud vendor, we can't walk away from our customers. We have to work with them very, very proactively, constantly bring innovation to the table because our commercial model is one of use. So we empower people to improve the way they work as a business, and that ensures that they continue using VoiceSage. So conversations in summary, we believe you can deliver the same return with 80% less resources. We have seen in the region of 10% increases in late debt promise kept rates. It does blend very, very nicely with the approaches we've alluded to already. And we can also bring payment automation in as well. So we have things like credit card tokenization, debit card tokenization. We can take payments through SMS into automatic payment gateways. All of that capability is part of the VoiceSage offer. I just wanted to give you a flavor of the timelines involved in deploying VoiceSage. It's a very thin deployment process because of the cloud-based nature. We're not deploying technology into business. You don't have to buy servers. All of that is catered for within our solution. We simply take data from your business, which we work with you. We define some rules. We define the language you use. And all of that can be done in anywhere between a 5 to 20 day time frame. We typically talk about 20 days. The reality is that 17 of those days are waiting for data to come back from our customers. So we can move very, very quickly on this technology. So if you have an immediate requirement or you're looking to leverage this capability, it is something we can do rapidly for you. So that pretty much covers off what I had to cover. I'm going to give a couple of minutes now as an opportunity for anybody that's got any questions. If anybody would like to raise any questions, there is a chat window there. Feel free to ensure that you've got your chat window open and you can ask any questions there. I will try and address those. Whilst I'm doing that, I'll just leave the final slide on there, which is a statement which I think is quite telling from Westcott, who's one of the business analysts at Vanquis Bank, runs that manages the business analyst team there. I think it's quite a compelling statement. I think it gives a very good example of us as a business, but also what we're able to bring to their business. So feel free to ask any questions. As I say, I'll give it 60 seconds for any questions to come up, which I'll address. Okay, a question that's come in. Can it work with one agent, more than one agent at a time? Yes, it can. We have no problem sitting across multiple agents. So what we've seen works well is typically an organization will identify maybe 2 or 3 agents within their business that have a broader cross-section of understanding, have been with the business a little bit longer. But we can absolutely provide communications across multiple agents. And also we can cover things like shift periods and shift times, so there is a transition from one agent to another agent if that's a requirement. Another question that's just come in here from one of the attendees is, what are the costs of the service? Well, a good question. It's quite a broad answer. We typically base it on a commercial model built around usage. So for an SMS conversation, we charge for each of the communications going out a few pennies. I mean, it really depends on the volumes of calls that are, volumes of transactions, I should say, that you're doing as a business. We have some customers that are doing millions a month with us. We have some customers that are doing a few hundred a month. So it is that variable. But I think at a very, very high level, I'm not going to be held to these prices, but to give you a flavor, you're probably looking at 4 or 5p for each SMS communication. Obviously, if the volumes increase, then we can have a significant impact on that cost. But to give you a flavor, that's where I would suggest you budget. We can bring those costs down if you're doing, serious volumes. Of course, we can. But that's typically the cost. We don't charge for setup. We don't charge a management fee here. The only charges are one of use. So we're a very easy solution to bring into the business and a very easy solution to deploy. Does anybody else have any other questions? Okay, I think we will be providing people with copies of the presentation after this. Here we go. Another question has just come up. Is there a minimum contract term? We typically look to engage customers on a 3-month contract, but we're not. If what we have found with all of our technology, to be fair, is once we've deployed the technology into a customer, we don't see customers turn the service off. Because it is, it is a very low-cost point of entry. Most organisations that we work with will start with a fairly small pilot, like maybe a 3-month pilot in a specific area of their business. We will build that pilot, we'll deploy that pilot, and then it just becomes business as usual very, very quickly, typically within the first month, because it's very apparent the value that we can bring. So, we would typically look for a 3-month engagement as a minimum, but again, if it's a pilot program, we're quite open to building something that lasts a month. It's not something we get particularly hung up about. And the reality is, our commercial model is such that if you don't use us, you're not paying for us. So there is very little risk to deploying VoiceSage in your business, and we would urge anybody that's on the webinar today to give us that opportunity to demonstrate that. Okay, if there are any more questions, then feel free to fire them up. My contact details are actually at the end of the slide, I think, here. So if you want to take those down, if I haven't addressed some questions that you had, by all means, give me a call, give me a phone on here. There is one final question that's come in, which I'll address. What technology does the agent need? The reality is very little. If they have a web browser, then that is fine. The only aspects they need to think of within that web browser are having some form of Java installed from Sun, which most web browsers today do. We support Internet Explorer 7. It's optimized for Internet Explorer 7 and above. Those are the only real requirements that we need. From a data perspective, we work in 2 ways. Most of our customers work on the basis of secure file transfer, so we will provide a gateway with fully encrypted data through an SSL gateway. We bring data from your world into our world. We work with it and we pass it back. We can do live API integrations to CRM systems for real-time updates. That is something we also are very capable of doing for you as well. Okay, as I say, my contact details are there. If you have any questions, by all means, fire me an email after this event. Give me a call on the mobile number. I'm happy to address those in any way that I can. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate your time in joining the webinar today. And we look forward to talking to you in due course. And at that, I shall say goodbye and thank you.